They told you life would always be hard. They conditioned you to believe that success only comes through suffering, that if you're not struggling, then something must be wrong. But I need you to hear this clearly. That was the old chapter. This next one is going to look completely different, and it's not going to make sense to people who only understand survival mode. You've carried the weight for far too long, but something is shifting in the atmosphere. You can feel it, can't you? Not in your mind, but deep in your spirit. This chapter will not be built through burnout. It will not be birthed through breakdowns. This time, it's going to be built by faith, by alignment, and by the grace of God that refuses to let you go. The next blessing over your life won't require you to beg, chase, or compromise. It'll flow to you because you're finally in position. You've struggled enough. Now, the struggle is over. Not because you quit, but because you chose to trust. God is not calling you to hustle harder. He's calling you to walk in your authority, stand in your identity, and move with supernatural faith. You've cried behind closed doors. You've worked in silence. You've sown seeds that no one saw. But heaven was watching. And what felt like delay was really preparation. The things that didn't work before weren't rejections. They were divine protection. Every door that didn't open, every person who walked away, every plan that crumbled, it was all part of the setup, not the setback. You see, chosen ones go through a process that others don't, because what you carry isn't ordinary. The weight on your life comes with great responsibility. So yes, your path was different. Yes, it took longer. Yes, it was lonelier. But you are stepping into a season where the struggle is no longer required for elevation. You're about to witness what favor looks like when it's not tied to pain. Let me be real. This doesn't mean you'll never face resistance again. But the energy around it will shift. You won't be fighting to survive. You'll be fighting to maintain peace. You won't be chasing after people who don't see you. You'll be surrounded by those who recognize your value without you having to prove anything. This chapter is about ease, not because life gets easier, but because your spirit is aligned. You're no longer forcing what was never meant to be. You're flowing with what's divinely yours. And when you start living by faith instead of fear, doors open without knocking. People show up with answers you didn't even ask for. Opportunities find you when you're just being obedient. That's what walking in divine order looks like. It's not lazy. It's not passive. It's powerful. It's bold. And it requires a level of trust most people aren't willing to step into. But you're different. You've seen too much to stay small. You've grown too much to stay silent. You've been through too much to question whether you're worthy. The truth is, you were worthy before the storm. The storm just revealed it. And now, the clouds are clearing. The sun is rising. And this new chapter, it will not be filled with endless striving. It will be filled with supernatural flow. That means you're going to have to unlearn the mindset that says you must struggle to be worthy. You're going to have to release the guilt that tells you rest is weakness. You're going to have to stop apologizing for walking in favor. You don't owe the world an explanation for why God is blessing you. You don't have to dim your light to make others feel comfortable. This is your season of divine recompense. God is restoring what was lost, but not just returning it in the same form. He's giving it back multiplied. The love, the resources, the vision, the time. It's all coming back with interest. But here's the key. You must believe it. You must trust it. Not with part of your heart, but with all of it. Because faith is not just believing God can do it. It's living like He already did. That's what this chapter demands. You don't need to hustle like you used to. You don't need to fight to prove your worth. You don't need to beg God for things that are already written in your destiny. You need to align. You need to speak what He said. You need to walk like it's already done. That's the real test in this season. Not how strong you are, but how surrendered you are. This new chapter is sacred. It's not going to look like your past. The wilderness was for training. But now you're entering the promised land. And in this place, faith is your key. Not force, not stress, not manipulation, just pure faith. That's what opens the doors now. That's what attracts the favor now. That's what positions you for overflow. But here's what the enemy won't tell you. When you walk by faith, everything starts to look too easy. And that bothers people, because they watched you suffer. They expected you to stay stuck. They were comfortable with your struggle. You're not going back. You're not shrinking. You're not repeating old cycles. This is the upgrade. This is the launch. This is the season where you soar. You were never meant to just survive. You were called to thrive. For too long, you've been caught in the belief that your worth is tied to how hard you work, how much you endure, and how much pain you can handle. That belief was never from God. It came from a wounded world that doesn't understand divine favor. But you're not here to prove your worth through struggle anymore. You've already proven it in silence. Through every season where no one clapped for you, you kept going. Through every night you cried yourself to sleep, you still got up. That was enough. And heaven took note. This next chapter is about moving differently. It's not about staying busy. It's about staying obedient. The difference. Busyness leads to burnout. Obedience leads to breakthroughs. And your spirit knows the difference. That's why you've been feeling the urge to slow down, to get quiet, to rest. Because the blessing that's coming doesn't require noise. It requires preparation. You've already fought the battles. You've already sown the tears. Now you're about to reap in joy. But joy is a frequency you have to tune into. You can't keep expecting peace while holding on to people and patterns that disturb your spirit. This new chapter requires a new rhythm, one that flows with divine timing, not human pressure. Listen, not everyone will understand why you're choosing rest over hustle. They'll call you lazy. They'll say you've changed. And they're right. You have. You've outgrown the version of yourself that thought struggle was the only way. You've awakened to the truth that alignment is more powerful than effort. That grace can do what grind never could. And the ones who are still addicted to struggle won't get it. But they're not your assignment. You're not here to convince them. You're here to show them what faith looks like when it's lived out loud. Not just in words, but in your decisions, in your pace, in your peace. And that's going to confuse a lot of people because for the first time, you're not striving. You're flowing. See, God is elevating you in a way that doesn't make sense. You're going to start receiving things you didn't chase. You're going to walk into rooms you didn't force open. You're going to be favored in ways that your resume can't explain. And when people ask how you did it, your only answer will be, I stopped trying to control everything and started trusting God completely. That's the power of surrender. You didn't get here overnight. You went through the fire. You went through rejection. You went through lack. But it refined you. It didn't destroy you. It developed you. You learned how to be faithful when you had nothing. Now God is about to show you what happens when He can trust you with something. But don't be surprised when old distractions try to reappear. The enemy sees what's coming, and he wants to pull you back into cycles of confusion and chaos. He wants you reactive, not focused. But this time, you're moving with wisdom. You've seen too much. You've healed too much. You've grown too much. You're not going to fall for the same tests. In this new chapter, discernment will be your superpower. Not everyone who claps for you is for you. Not every opportunity is from God. And not every invitation deserves your yes. You'll have to say no to good things to make room for the God things. You'll have to choose alignment over approval. You'll have to stay hidden even when you feel ready, because timing is everything. Don't rush it. You're not behind. You're not late. You're right on time for your divine assignment. And this next chapter, it's already written. God is not scrambling to figure out how to bless you. The provision is already set. The connections are already arranged. The doors are already open. You just haven't walked through them yet. So breathe, rest, prepare, because you're stepping into a season that will require less hustle and more holiness. Less panic and more peace. Less trying and more trusting. You don't have to earn what God already promised. It's coming because of who you are, not what you've done. It's flowing because you were faithful, not because you were flawless. You were never meant to carry it all. That's why it felt so heavy. That's why it broke you down. You weren't supposed to do it alone. And now, you won't have to. Help is coming. Resources are coming. Divine support is coming. You're not building this new chapter on broken foundations. God tore those down for a reason, so He could rebuild it His way, with His blueprint, not yours. That's why things didn't go the way you planned, because He had better in mind. You don't see it all yet, but your spirit feels it. The shift, the stirring, the soft whisper that says, "This time will be different," and it will. Because you're different. You've shed the old. You've released the weight. You've surrendered your need to control. And that's exactly what made room for the miracle. What's coming won't make sense to the people who watched you struggle, but it will make perfect sense to your spirit. Because deep down, even when you couldn't see the evidence, you always knew there was more. More peace, more purpose, more joy, more life. You just didn't know how it would arrive. And now, it's here. You're not walking into this next season as the same person who barely survived the last one. You've been refined by fire. You've been tested in silence. You've been molded in isolation. And now, God is calling you to walk in the version of yourself that's been hidden for too long. The version that doesn't shrink to make others comfortable, that doesn't dim your light just to be accepted, that doesn't carry burdens you were never meant to hold. You were never meant to do this life alone. That's why, in this new chapter, divine connections are going to find you. You won't have to chase love, force friendships, or pretend to be someone else to be seen. The right people are going to recognize your spirit. They're going to feel your anointing before you ever say a word. And they'll honor you, not for what you can give, but for who you are. That's what happens when you step out of struggle and into alignment. You begin attracting what matches your healed frequency. You start noticing who drains you and who pours into you. You start honoring your peace like it's the most valuable currency, because it is. And once you taste peace, chaos just doesn't hit the same anymore. You won't beg to be understood anymore. You won't over-explain your boundaries. You won't apologize for evolving. You've done your time in the shadows. You've done your time being overlooked. This new chapter is about visibility, not for ego, but for purpose. God's about to position you where your gifts can't be ignored, where your light can't be hidden, where your name will be mentioned in rooms your feet haven't even entered yet. Not because you forced it, but because you flowed into it. Every delay was divine. Every rejection was protection. Every closed door was God whispering, "Not this. I have something better." And even when you didn't understand, even when you cried in confusion, you stayed the course. You didn't quit. You stayed faithful. You kept praying. You kept believing. And heaven recorded every moment. Now comes the reward. Not because you were lucky, but because you are aligned. Not because you hustled harder than everyone else, but because you trusted deeper. You surrendered. And that surrender gave God the space to move how only He can. Supernaturally, suddenly, and without explanation. You'll start to notice things falling into place without your effort. You'll sense favor following you like a shadow. You'll begin to smile again. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally living in peace. The striving is over. The war in your soul has ended. And even if life still has its ups and downs, you won't be shaken anymore. Because now you know who you are. You're chosen. You're protected. You're anointed. You're not just another face in the crowd. You're part of God's divine blueprint. And every step you've taken, even the painful ones, led you to this very moment. Nothing was wasted. No tear went unseen. No prayer was ignored. So stand up. Lift your head. You're not stepping into another season of survival. You're stepping into overflow, into clarity, into rest, into real joy. That kind of joy that doesn't leave when circumstances shift. The kind of joy that's rooted in knowing who walks beside you. You don't need to chase the blessing. The blessing is chasing you. You don't need to prove your worth. God already declared it. You don't need to fear the future because it's already secure. So breathe, smile, release the pressure. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not forgotten. You're chosen. And what God has prepared for you, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined. It's bigger, it's better, and it's yours. All you have to do now is trust, not your old patterns, not your fear, but your faith. Because faith is your ticket. Faith is your access point. Faith is your bridge from where you were to where you're about to go. This time, you don't have to struggle your way there. This time, you just have to believe. Now here's your call to action. Now that you've heard this powerful message, I want to hear from you. If this spoke to your spirit and you're ready to rise above every struggle with faith, take a moment to comment "I'm aligned" below. Declare it, own it, and walk in it.